MSU. Don't focus on genetics, focus on your nutrition.
Okay.
The reason being is, so I'm going to jump back here to World War II.
Mm-hmm.
There were some European countries that were really struggling during that time and afterwards. Okay, so some human researchers went through and they started studying humans and how humans had changed physically after the war due to...
Off the Farm, brought to you by Cherokee Farmers Co-op, right here in the heart of Center, Alabama. I'm your host, Seth Eubanks, and each week we're diving into the stories, the people, and the work that make up life on the farm and beyond. Here at Cherokee Farmers Co-op, we're not just about farming, we're about community, tradition, and innovation. Whether you're a lifelong farmer, a newcomer to agriculture, or just curious about rural life, this podcast is for you. We'll explore the latest in farming techniques, the challenges our local farmers face, and how the co-op is supporting sustainable agriculture and the local economy. But it's not all about the fields and the crops. We'll also share stories from the people who live, work, and thrive here in Cherokee County, Alabama. So pull up a chair, maybe grab a cup of coffee, and join us as we talk about life on and off the farm. All right, I'd like to welcome y'all to the third podcast of Life on and Off the Farm. If you're new to the channel, I'd like to do a little review on episodes 1 and 2. If you go back and listen, we encourage y'all to go back and listen to them. But we kind of talk about kind of who we are and how we got to where we are today. And who we are is Cherokee Farmers Co-op. We're based out of Center, Alabama. We've got a store in Piedmont and a store in Jacksonville. Northeast portion of Alabama. Mm-hmm. You probably hear it in our voices. One thing I have learned doing this podcast, doing this editing, here we go again, editing. One thing I realized, I wish I would have listened a little bit more English class, grammar, and took speech in college a little bit more serious.
Of course, I always tell Seth that I've got a face for radio and a voice for silent film, so that kind of, so, you're just going to have to, buckle up and get ready for the rides.
Hold on just one. Y'all excuse me just 1 second. I got to do something. For those maybe not watching this on YouTube, but let me explain what I just done. I had to put my sunglasses on, okay? Somebody thought they was going to be wise, and I don't know what kind of color this shirt is, but my right eye started twitching a little bit.
All right, now.
for those listening on podcast, Carson Prater, he's an employee here at Cherokee Farmers Co-op, has decided, I guess it's the brightest neon pink shirt I believe I've ever seen. I mean, I almost had to go check and get some sunscreen. Might have second-degree burns before this is all
Shows you tan lines now.
No, all jokes aside, before we get into today's guest, I said I was going to do a review on kind of who we are, Cherokee Farmers Co-op. I encourage you to go back and listen to episodes 1 and 2. We are trying to be, I think we're getting a little bit better as things go on, and hopefully, we'll quit stumbling and all over ourselves. And, in my mind, it sounds great, but I just can't get my mind and my mouth to catch up with one another. So there's probably some kind of ism or phobia or something that's tied to. But before we get into today's guest, I mentioned Carson Prater. He's an employee here at Cherokee Farmers Co-op. He is actually the brother of our special guest today, and we'll get into introduce him in just a little bit. But before we do that, Stephen, if you don't mind, tell the fine audience what kind of deals they could be experiencing here at Cherokee Farmers Co-op and Center.
Okay, we still got the Bonnie plant sale going, 5 for $20. That's on all vegetables and flowers in the 6-pack, 9-pack, and 4.5-inch cups. The baskets are $19.98. Onion sets are $5.98, and we also have fruit cherries for $16.99. Something else a lot of folks don't know, we are carrying the Coast of Maine products now, and we're one of the largest suppliers in the area of that. Some of the products that we're carrying on some planting soils is the acid-loving plant mix, the rose and flower mix, tomato and vegetable mix. They also have a raised bed formula that we carry, a potting soil, and a composted manure. Now, the raised bed and the composted manure is ORMRI listed, which means the Organic Materials Review Institute, and that's a nonprofit that evaluates products used in organic farming through stringent testing. They also have some programs through them that we're participating in. One is if you like freebie kind of stuff, and I think Seth's got some freebies coming up a little bit later, but $5 rebate if you purchase one bag of the acid-loving plant planting soil, the rose and flower planting soil, or the tomato and vegetable planting soil. You get a $5 rebate. You mail it in, and they will mail you a gift certificate to Cherokee Farmers Co-op, so you can use it right here in the store. Another item or a program that they do is the Growing Good Soil Donation Program. If you're a school, nonprofit, or a public garden, Coast of Maine will donate 10 cubic feet of soil. You go to their website, you can fill out an application, they'll give you information, and you can pick it up here at Cherokee Farmers Co-op. And check out their website also. They got a wealth of information on there, from calculating how many bags you need for a project to planting a garden. So check those folks out. So
it's a pretty good deal. Pretty good deals there. And like Stephen mentioned, I also had a few freebies going on, whether you know it or not. You know, we've asked this in the last 2 episodes, and if you follow anybody on social media, they ask you to like, follow, and subscribe, you know, to whatever page that may be. And we just don't do that to put money in our pocket, but that's to help get the algorithm out there to let people know, hey, this is a pretty good deal. There are a lot of people watching, so that is free to do. All it takes is a little bit of energy, a little bit of time. Hit this, you know, leave us a review on podcast, any of your podcast platforms, which I think there's a total of 6 that we're on now. Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and Player FM. That's pretty big deal. And then also too, we're on YouTube, where we're doing a live video version of the podcast. So a lot of people like to go and kind of watch. And
so if you want to check out Carson's pink shirt,
get on there and check out his pink shirt. So. And you'll understand why I had to put my sunglasses on there for a minute. My eyes, you know, still a little twitching. I might have to put me a blinder up, you know, like these mules and stuff. But anyway, like I said, and believe it or not, Stephen, we found out earlier this week, this life on and off the farm is now international.
That's right.
We have gone international, guys.
That's awesome.
We've had some downloads in Australia.
There you go.
So whoever you are, thank you in Australia. Leave us a review. Let us know, you know, what you got going on. I know there's a lot of agriculture in Australia. I've always wanted to go. That's one of my places I want to visit. So I'm just a little worried about it. It looks like everything I read or watch, everything wants to kill you down there. So I'm a little bit nervous. But without further ado, for those watching, you may see a few items here on the table. And our special guest is the mastermind creator of what we call the Fix, a deer mineral. And we plan on giving these items away to one of our lucky listeners. And I'll wait a little bit let them know how they can win that. Yeah. But we're going to give that away. That's coming from Cherokee Farmers Co-op of Center. And like I said, one lucky listener, hopefully, do the things we do, and we can give that away. It's a pretty good deal. Nice hat. I'm wearing mine today, and a bag of the Fix to kind of introduce. And you know, we stand behind these products. We're a user of these products, so we're just not. You know, one thing that a lot of people may not know about me, but it's hard for me to push a product that I don't believe. There's so many products out there in the ag industry this day and time that, you know, a lot I guess you'd say snake oil, Stephen.
Oh yeah.
And it's just hard for me to stand behind a product that I don't use myself. And I'm not a very good used car salesman. I just never believed in that. And I've always been straightforward. What you over there giggling about? You're a good used car salesman.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's good. But I've never been, if something's wrong with something, I've never could pull the wool over somebody's eyes. I mean, I like
I always
to go
got
home.
bit doing it, so that's.
Well, I like going home and going to sleep.
That's
at night,
right.
So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's guest, Dacin Lowe. If you don't mind, tell us a little who you are, where you from.
Okay, so I'm Dacin Lowe from Cherokee County, born and raised Cherokee County. I graduated from Cherokee County School. My whole life has been here.
Local boy.
Yeah, no, haven't stepped much outside of this state, much less this corner of the state. So,
Well, I mean, I'm not originally from here. I'm from, we talked about it in episode 1. I moved up here. And, man, it is beautiful. If nobody's ever been, definitely a place to come. We got Weiss Lake, got the mountains. Pretty place up here. So.
it changes a lot and it's crazy how much it changes from one side of the county to the other.
It is.
Because where we're at, it's flat all the way till you get to the mountain. Like heading towards Etowah, it changes.
A lot of river bottoms.
Going to ball play, you hit the river, it's swampy. Yeah.
And Outdoorsman's paradise is how I look at it.
Yes, it is.
Have you always been an outdoorsman?
Yes. Well, I mean,
Since you was young?
Oh, yeah, since I was a kid.
So who was your big influencer getting you outside in the hunting and fishing?
So my mother has 2 twin brothers, my uncles. Growing up, I was around them a lot, and I noticed the older I got and could start paying attention, both of them were really avid turkey hunting, duck hunting, deer hunting. And mainly the deer hunting things, what I started to like be attracted to the most. So as I got, I think probably around 8 to 10 is where it really started picking up. And one of them, can I
Go ahead. Go ahead.
One of them actually works here. He's an employee for the co-op. Jeremy, he kind of carried me a lot more than Jason did. I guess Jeremy he liked me a little bit more. So as a kid, I remember I'd not ever, other than just seeing pictures and seeing them come in, like when we were at my grandmother's wearing camouflage and stuff, he carried me on a deer hunt and was actually over in ball play. And to this day, I might have been 8 years old. I will never forget that whole hunt. Every walk we hunted from the ground. And it's like once that day happened, I didn't even shoot the deer. He did.
He was hooked.
And it was just like, that changed me.
Yeah, I remember, I was just barely old enough to walk. I believe my dad was dragging me out in the outdoors, fishing, hunting. I remember, walking behind him and him, stopping me. He said, "Man, you sound like a daggum herd of buffaloes." Kind of walked soft. And I was like, it took me a little while, but I finally got the hang of it. But, those days, being as young as I was, I had to be like 3 or 4. And he'll tell you, he was always dry. I always wanted to go. There was something about the outdoors I was drawn to. And it stuck with me, throughout the years. I don't hunt as much as I have in the past. I used to be an avid duck hunter. I lived, breathed, ate, everything I'd done. It just consumed me. And of course, the winters, the migration, there's a whole lot of things that's kind of went on. That's kind of, the duck hunting is not as good as it used to be. And so I picked up I've always fished. I had another uncle that was real big into fishing. So, I always fished, and I catch myself nowadays doing a lot more fishing than I do hunting. And, I consider myself as Jerry Clower would once say, I'm a perch jerker. We live up here in Weiss Lake. If nobody knows, crappie capital of the world. I actually live in Southside. We've got Neely Henry. We've got Gunnersville. So a lot of great lakes to fish and stuff. But that's not what this podcast is about. I'm sorry I went down a little rabbit hole there. I got to talk about fishing, man. I'm ready to go. But.
Yeah, as far as it being a part of my life early on, probably around 8, I'd say it started, and then just having the experience with Jeremy, the deer, I didn't get to go much as a kid. I wasn't his kid, so he didn't have to carry me all the time. But probably around 10, I killed my first deer. My grandmother carried me. That's an incredible story for another time. Lord have mercy, that's an awesome one. But killed my first deer with a rifle around 10, and then that's when I really became obsessed. And at that time, I was definitely paying attention to my uncles, and they were big bow hunters. Mm-hmm. So at 10 years old, you're like, a 10-year-old can't do much with a bow. Well,
right.
For Christmas that year, told my mom, I was like, I want this bow. I'm a big boy. I was a big 10-year-old too. So I told my mom, I was like, I want this bow from Academy for Christmas. And she said, are you sure? And I was like, 100%. She got me an adult bow. It was like a Browning micro adrenaline, 70 pounds. Pulling 70 pounds.
10 years old and pulling a 70 pound bow.
Oh, it was tough. So shot that bow. I shot that bow. I don't know. I'm surprised it didn't blow up. And the next season, the other uncle, Jason, carried me on the other side of the county on my first bow hunt. Killed my first deer with a bow on my first bow hunt at 11 years old.
What size buck was that?
Oh, man, I wished it was a buttonhead.
Okay. Hey, nothing wrong.
Jason told me, he said, look, they're going to come down this trail. They're going to walk here. You just shoot the first one you see. So I did that.
Hey, you can't eat those horns.
That's right.
Now, speaking outdoorsman, just a few years ago, I remember seeing some videos and stuff, AL Outdoorsman. What happened to that?
Okay, so let's see. I started AL Outdoorsman in like 2017, 2018. And it was just like a kind of just a hobby, basically, because at that point, I graduated in 16. I was obsessed, beyond obsessed.
Right. All
throughout
videos,
high school.
Hunt Public was big.
Everything was blowing up.
Yeah.
And I started AL Outdoorsman just as like, I guess just to push like my outdoor content, because being obsessed, you get a lot of it every season, and it never stops. It's year round. And so I used that platform to push it. And the page actually it was an Instagram page. It actually got pretty big at one point. I think it was between like 7,000 and 9,000 followers. Wow. To me, that's massive.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I was a celebrity. And I also made hats, shirts, would go and set up at trade day. So, I mean, it got big, really. Carson went and set up with us.
Oh, yeah.
And we sold tons of hats, tons of shirts, and did that for a year or so. And I guess I just got burnt out on the social media side.
Right. And then life happens.
You start getting older.
As one thing, being on social media and a social media influencer, it takes a lot of time. And then life gets in the way of some of that. But, I've dabbled in it just a little bit, and nothing, too major. But, I mean, that's something you got to do every day, every week. You got to post and get that, following or not, you'll lose it. Is there any kind of thing in the future where you may pick it back up? Have you any thoughts on that?
The Instagram page I did end up deleting. I do regret it sometimes because it got pretty big. Deleted it, and I kept the Instagram or the YouTube page. Yeah. So I still post videos to the YouTube page every now and then.
Man, some of my favorite videos is your best friend Remington.
Oh yeah.
Oh, those seeing his reactions is gold.
There's a good turkey hunting video on there of him. I guess he just forgot how to speak or something for like 2 or 3 minutes.
I mean that is gold, pure gold. Seeing somebody get excited, and like that's one thing. When I kind of ended up in my last few years of duck hunting, I was bringing in. I got more enjoyment, taking new people hunting, taking kids hunting. I hunted with a big group there to start with, and they was really it's really tight knit, and they didn't like to bring new people in, but that was what I liked. I mean, I liked seeing, like, I took my roommate in college, Justin Nelson, and he come in and he said, what do I need? I said, man, just bring some hip waders, bring your shotgun. That's all you need. Well, that's all I got, because me and him used to coon hunt when we was in college. I think I'm the first and probably the only one that's ever had a coon dog sleep in a dorm on a college campus. I mean, we'd played football, and then as soon as we got off football practice, everybody'd go and do the little thing. So me and Justin would go to Clanton, Alabama, and we'd strike up a coon. We may last just a few hours, or maybe I asked all night. No, you know how coon hunting is. But anyway, but I took him on his first duck hunt, and he had never been, and I was like, okay, it's time. First few ducks come in. I called to him. I said, shoot him. He said, shoot what? And it might have been a little too early. I'm not going to say. I think, that's been a long time ago, so nobody can hold that against me. But anyway, I shot a double. He said, okay, I got you. And buddy, I just set my gun down and worked the birds from here on out. And man, my knees was shaking. He was getting excited. I mean, it was just exciting. So I know what you're talking about, with Remington and all that kind of stuff. But yeah,
I think the biggest thing that caused me to Ian Dale Outdoorsman was like, this is gonna sound funny, but like we as humans with the internet and technology, we're so new to it,
yes.
And there's so many people that still don't know how to treat each other on the internet.
Exactly.
And as big as the page got, the more attention it attracts, the more people you're going to come along hating it.
Yeah.
And I got tired of the
ridicule.
Yeah.
And the negativity.
If it's,
the true trophy is in the beholder.
Yeah.
And nobody can put that down.
And it's not even what you kill, like, 100-inch deer. There's a lot of people to this day that they'll live their whole lives loving 100-inch deer. And then you can't take that anymore without someone trying to stomp all over it and just tell you that it's like there's people that'll live their whole life and never see a deer bigger than 100 inches. Yeah. How can you tell them that they can't enjoy that?
Right.
But aside from the trophy shaming, it was just, it was anything, man. I'd post a pattern video and people would be like, oh, there's 320 pellets in a 10-inch circle. Why ain't you got 400 in it? It's like, dude, come on. It's like there's only 400 pellets in the shell. What are you talking about? I think that's what led it to go. But like you had asked, is there anything in the future with it? I've got several videos that I've collected throughout the past 2 years. Mm-hmm. I've been editing. That is a hard word to say.
Yeah.
I've been editing them the past couple weeks, past couple months. And then as far as the fix goes, I'm slowly working on tying them in together somehow. I'm starting to develop, we'll probably get into this a little bit later, but I'm just starting to develop a deer herd that will cooperate with me. And now I'm starting to blend in the years and bring these certain deer year after year after year. And it's really helping me. This past season, I took a deer that I'd had on camera for 3 years, and as a 5.5-year-old deer, he's been eating that ever since he was 2. So, it may get blended in a little later on.
Yeah. Do you think developing that product has given you a different perspective on deer nutrition and in the herd health and stuff?
It's definitely given me a different perspective on like a give and take aspect. A lot of people, they'll feed, they'll run corn. Majority of people run corn. Nothing wrong with that. I run a lot of corn too. And as far as the give and take from us to the animal, to the deer herd itself, I feel like social media drives this, but there's a lot more take than there is give. Mm-hmm. And in the deer hunting world, we see that, but I think it's even more so in the turkey hunting world. We're not talking turkeys. That's a long subject. But, if it's opened my eyes to anything, it's like that one buck that I killed this year. I took 2 bucks off that property this year. A lot of people, I was tagged out in Georgia. A lot of people would have quit feeding. I'm still feeding today. Season's been out for months. And you owe it. You'll eventually feel like you just owe it to the deer because you watch so many of them, trying to get to that point, and then you take them, and then it's bittersweet,
Before we jump off, and we mentioned it just a little bit, before we jump off in the fix, I still got a few more questions kind of want to ask you. And somebody brought to my attention, as I told them you was going to be a special guest on the show. They kind of said, well, what does hunting, outdoorsman, and farming, being an ag retailer, what do they have in common? Like, I thought you had a farming podcast. If you look, the reason I done the name is life on and off the farm. So I kind of done it and touched a little bit on the introduction, the main introduction that plays before these podcasts. It's not all about farming. It's about our community and stuff. But kind of go back to my question. What are your thoughts? What is agriculture and farming, hunting, what does all that kind of play in part and actually coincide with one another?
I mean, we're both taking from the land.
Yeah, good stewards of the land.
Yes, and what you do take from the land, you do owe to the land.
Yeah.
And from a farmer's aspect, that they have a whole lot more money tied into it than most of us deer hunters. So,
we kind of mentioned on it earlier before I hit the record button is, we talked about how 10, 15, 20 years ago, we didn't really have this much deer pressure. And the varieties of the cotton, touched on it, for those it used to be a hairy leaf. Well, all the genetic breeding, and they had the varieties that we have today that have the chemical resistant, the dicamba, the Roundup, that type of thing. A lot of the old genetics have been bred out, so we don't have a very hairy leaf anymore. And you made a good point earlier is, we get calls all the time about, hey, what can I do? Customers call me, I've got deer in my field, they're just eating me up, a lot more than what they used to. And you made a good point. There's a lot of high protein.
Cotton leaf, high protein.
And I've got a good story. We do leaf sampling here as the cotton grows. And I'd go out in the field, and I was like, man, somebody's been out here doing leaf samples already. And I look down, and it's not. I mean, it's deer tracks everywhere. And they're picking if you've never done, probably, I don't know, a lot of people never pulled a leaf sample off of cotton. There's a certain leaf you want to plant to get the maximize nutrition that's in that plant. And it seemed like everywhere I went, there was a deer that went there before me that was pulling that exact leaf. So
they are selective harvesters. They're going to pick the best and leave the rest.
That's right.
So it, the cotton thing, it seems like I talked to a farmer. Well, we've got a pretty big field behind our house. I mean, it's close to 1,000 yards long, and you can't see the end on either side nearly. I think you know where I live. So
I do.
You know how big it is.
Yep.
I was talking to that farmer earlier this year, and he was telling me that he had lost like 2 to 3 acres during the leaf process, summer months, and that was just from the deer behind the house. And I thought, man, there's no way. I was like, I live here and I don't see that many deer out there. Later in the year, he had given me permission to hunt there. And I told Carson I got me a spot and scope, and I started setting out and actually paying attention. There'd be evenings in them fields, which they'd sowed them with wheat. There'd be evenings in them fields. We'd sit there and see 20, 25, 30 deer just out on these little points in them fields. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, that's a winter group. These deer, season's still in, they're getting pressured, and there's a group that big right there. It's like, imagine unpressured in the middle of the summer, how many deer is eating that cotton,
Yeah. Well, I'm fixing to turn you loose. Like I said, you're the mastermind creator of Fix. We talked a little bit of it. Tell us, what is the Fix? How'd you come up with the name? What? Tell our listeners, describe it the best of your ability. How you come up with it? I'm gonna turn you loose and let you go.
Okay. So let's see, how many years has it been since Elliot had opened his store? About 4 years ago, 5 years?
4 or 5 years ago.
Okay. So I had a friend, y'all probably know Wise Lake Tackle, that opened up here in Center. He had opened up a store. We graduated together, always been real good buddies. And he was selling feed from Tucker's Milling. And he didn't have any mineral blends except for one, and it wouldn't sell because it was like way overpriced. I mean, it was outrageous.
Right.
And I told him, I said, hey, I was like, would you be interested in me creating my own blend and us putting it in here, and we'll work out the numbers and we'll see where it goes. And he was like, yeah, So I come up with it, and my whole idea behind the Fix is there's one word I think of when I think of the Fix, and that's consistency. Any type of success you're going to have in the whitetail world, the fix to all your problems is be consistent with the deer. It doesn't matter if you're from scent control. If you're trying to control your scent, be consistent with controlling your scent. If you're trying to play the wind, be consistent with it. If you're feeding the deer and you're going to hunt a baited area, be consistent feeding them. Like if you're feeding this definitely ties into it. But if you're feeding and you're feeding weeks on end, and then opening day hits, and you go in opening day, and then you don't have the success you want, and you're bummed out, and you're like, man, I'm done with these deer, and you don't feed for a week, those patterns change significantly in 1 week. Because being in the South, our terrain doesn't provide the best forage,
right?
You know, unless you've got ag around you. If them deer ain't got nothing to eat, they're not going to be there.
And another thing I should have asked is, we're in April right now, major, right in the heart of turkey season.
Yep.
Why aren't we talking about deer minerals right now in April?
It's the growing season. It is. We are in the South.
How important is it to go ahead and be putting some minerals out right now?
Yeah, it's key. Right now, I've got some stuff I was going to talk about. I'll tie into it here in a little bit, but right now is prime time if you want to try to make any type of health change or give the deer any type of benefit. Now is the time. It will affect the deer physically more now than it will in the wintertime. During the wintertime, they're done growing. They've spent all summer getting to where they want to be. They don't need, you know, it as much.
Right.
But as soon as that next spring rolls around, it's go time again. So yeah, right now, February, basically a lot of people argue with me, January, February, March, get it on the ground, because come June, July, you'll really see how badly they want it.
Now, is this something you want to keep out all year long, or, you know, a lot of people, and we see it working at an ag retail store, is that people kind of lay off a little bit, and all of a sudden you can tell something's happened, either opening day, you know, we don't see it, and all of a sudden we get a big flush. Either they've seen a buck, or something's not quite right. Hey, we've got to hammer it right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't, like you said earlier, you got to be consistent. So that's why, do you keep it all out all year long? What are you doing with your herd?
So what I do is we'll call it the black bag. That's the mineral blend.
I call it the OG.
Yeah,
original.
OG. The original fix. It is a mineral blend. It's the micronutrients that the deer need throughout the summer. We're talking vitamins, minerals. There's nothing big in that bag macro wise. There's no carbs, no protein, no nothing. We're talking the bare minimum of like you waking up in the morning and taking a vitamin pill. You know, it's got everything you need for your body in that one little pill. So now, I'm sorry.
Let me stop you right there. Have you ever had the thought of putting that on some like grilled chicken and throwing it on the grill? I mean, that stuff smells absolutely, and it tastes great. I mean, I love it. I have to catch myself over there, open the bag, you know, and kind of nobody's looking, kind of lick my fingers, you know, stick it in there. That, I mean, I just had to
I'll
stop.
be honest with you.
That is one thing that drives probably the fix more than out of any other kind of product. That, I mean, I literally want to put that on some chicken, put it on the grill, and hey, see the outcome of it.
It does. I mean, I make the bags. I'll be honest. I think about it every time we make them. It's like, man, these smell so good. But I forgot, Seth, what your original question was.
I mean, I was just letting you ramble on the fix, dude.
Okay.
Kind of like how you come up with the name, you know,
Okay.
how you got started, that type of thing. You was talking about, you know, Watts Lake Tackle.
Yep, we'd went over Elliot's store, and Elliot ran the store for a couple of years, and it sold really good in the store. It sold so much.
Oh, I know. I had people. We didn't carry it at the time, and I had people coming over asking. I was like, I know we wasn't as, you know, as friends. We kind of, you know, I know who you were. But it wasn't until Carson, I owe Carson a big thank you. He's the one that kind of really pushed us and got us involved, because you was wanting to get it out there. Watts Lake Tackle closed, and then you was looking for another avenue. And I said, hey, let's give it a shot. I'm open to try anything.
Yeah, and it's not something that I created to be just this life changing. You know, I still work a 7 to 3:30 Monday through Friday. I do this because I feel like this helps me give back to the animal that I take from the land. Right. But as far as you're right. Wise Lake Tackle, he closed. He was tired of running the business. He sold. Carson had gotten to me, and he was like, "Hey, there's potential. You might be able to carry at the co-op if you throw them your pitch and see how they feel about it." And we went from there.
It's done really well here. I mean, there's people that come in that I've never seen before asking. I mean, they're literally asking for it, and then when we're sold out, they say, "Hey, when's it coming in?" And Carson's
At least we got the hookup.
Carson's got a list of people that as soon as it comes in the door, man, they're coming in and they're buying. They're just not buying one bag; they're buying multiple bags and stuff.
I know now that it's made its way to Kentucky and it's made its way down to middle of Georgia, somewhere in there, about Noonan.
Yeah, I know there for a little bit during the winter. I think especially it really hit when the rut hit. When people started seeing them deer move, boy, they was throwing it to them. And I think like the end of November through January, it was every week. Carson was calling me, "Hey, we're out." And I'm like, "Dude, it's been 3 days." I was like,
well, as we're going along, I want you to kind of touch on the nutrient value of this. Why is it important to the deer? I know you got a lot of notes there wrote down.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and get into that.
All right. So, like I said, I spoke to you earlier. We talked about doing the podcast about 2 days. I had 2 days, so I've been thinking about it, and I was like, I'm going to try to write down a lot that I can remember, just tied into the bag itself. But also, like I wrote down to remember a study and to dive into like a little bit of it's called epigenetics in whitetails. I'll get into that, but it's just some things that I have behind the scenes that I think about when working with the product, like what I put into it. So a big thing would be is some people are under the impression, this is talking directly about my bag. This is not anyone else's product. This bag is not going to make your deer grow 10 inches of antler in 1 year. It's not going to do it. Nor is anyone else's product. It's not. It doesn't work that way. Deer need a couple of years to improve, and you really have to throw the habitat advantage to them, being this. There's a lot of other things you could do to your land to help improve it, but if you're going to just directly feed and expect results, you're going to need to feed a lot, no matter what it is.
And a lot of it boils down to big deer is good genetics.
Yes.
And managing your herd.
Yes.
That's a lot that's another thing.
That's one thing I've got wrote down on here. Actually, goes against what you said.
Oh, okay.
But the main thing is this is coming from MSU. It's don't focus on genetics, focus on your nutrition.
Okay.
The reason being is so I'm going to jump back here to World War II. There were some European countries that were really struggling during that time and afterwards. Okay, so some human researchers went through and they started studying humans and how humans had changed physically after the war due to being like food deprived and the environmental change and the environmental stress that they had had. What they had found is like nearly 2 generations after the war, the children being born were still smaller than average on the generations before. Those children's children were still smaller than average. That is what had happened is they call it a genetic marker. This ties into epigenetics. That's the study of change of genetics throughout history. Okay. Like due to environmental change. This same thing ties into whitetails. So MSU did a study on this. They have, they used Mississippi. They have, sorry, I'm blanking. They got the lower coastal plains, they got the hills, and then they got the Delta. Okay. Everyone knows the Delta has giant deer. They're big deer, 200 pound, 150-inch deer.
Well, the Mississippi people might not appreciate that.
yeah, along that river, I know what y'all got hiding in there, okay? So, MSU did a 10-year study, and they just recently closed the study up. The deer in the Delta, compared to the bottom of the state, there's huge difference. In the middle of the state, the closer you start getting to those better soils, the deer were a little bit better. But like the hills aspect of the state, that portion of the state was kind of the in-between. But the lower coastal plains and then the Delta, there was a completely different animal. A mature buck in the lower coastal plains was around 150 pounds, and the max antler growth was like 110 inches. You go to the Delta, a 4 or 5 year old deer is 190, 200 pounds, and he's 140, 150 inches.
And that kind of ties back into agriculture. I mean, you think of the Delta, what's the main thing you think of the Delta, Stephen? agriculture.
Oh,
Yep.
yes.
A lot of food, a lot of protein out there.
So MSU's what they wanted to study was, okay, if we took a wild deer from the Delta, we took a wild deer from the hills, mid-state, we took a wild deer from the plains, the lower plains. If we take them and fence them in, I'm not going to get into the specifics of the study, the sizes of the pens, it's all, they went all out. This was a heavily funded study. They took each one of them, placed them in 3 different areas. The pens were massive, and they gave them a protein and supplemental feed. They didn't give them a restriction on it. That is all that those deer's diet consisted of, other than natural forage inside of the pen and food plots that were planted for the deer. Okay. They did that for 1 year, and what they measured was the body weights of the deer the following season the following year to see if anything had changed. And then what they did, this is a 10-year study. So then they took the fawns from that second year that had been bred inside the pens, and they measured their weights and then compared them to the free-ranging deer. In 1 year, nothing had changed. Nothing. Across all 3 of them. Nothing had changed hardly. In the lower coastal plains, the average doe weight, I think it was actually it was right at what it was, still free-ranging deer. The second year is where it got interesting. So the second year, I take that back. One thing did change in 1 year. Surprisingly, it was antler growth. But you're taking an animal from a very poor forage area and putting them in somewhere that is, they have everything they could ever think of to eat, high nutrition. And antlers are not really considered that vital over a whitetail's health because they grow them and they drop them every year.
Right.
So the second year rolls around. Those deer, over the course of the study, in all 3 of the pens, I can't remember the exact number, but I know the lower coastal plain deer had averaged almost 30 pounds in body weight higher than they had 2 years prior. But they had all the food and the forage that they needed to do it. The deer from the hills, they had increased, they'd improved. Now, the deer from the Delta did not improve all that much in 2 years. So what that is saying is, what that said to them was that there was a genetic marker on those deer from the poor forage areas. The soil lacked, the soil in the lower coastal plains compared to the Delta, huge difference. Aside from what's in the fields and the ag, just the soil in general, like the forage growing from the soil, the natural forage, there's no comparison. So you take all this information and you now know, okay, so there's genetic markers on the deer. It's like a gene lock. So the previous way that people thought whitetails worked was, well, if we take this buck that's just in a poor genetic area and we give him everything he wants, he'll reach his genetic potential the next year. And that's not the case. Because if he does, but yet the forage changes the year after, he's really going to struggle that next year, and it could likely kill him. So
we've kind of always been talking, and the reason why I said that is we've always heard it as genetics. I find this is very interesting. I'm learning something new here. So
yeah,
this is awesome.
I encourage anyone listening to look into the study because there's a lot of things that I'm missing out on. I'm just trying to narrow it down into something, but it's a really interesting study. Not only from the state of Mississippi, you could heavily compare it to us. Look in the north part of Alabama compared to central Alabama, compared to southern Alabama. Yeah. A big deer up here, man, there's people killing 150, 160-inch deer up here. You go to South Alabama, 100, 110 inches.
I know. That's where I'm from. So.
You better game.
That's like, the first time I went to Illinois hunting, and kind of off subject, going down another rabbit hole, is the stipulation on this farm that I was hunting was it had to be a 150-inch deer or better. And I was like, man, I don't know if I've ever seen it. What is it? I started and I went to the guy that owned the farm, and I said, sir, what happens if we shoot one that's not 150? He said, well, if you've never seen one, I kind of let the first one slide. He said, but if you seen one and you do it on purpose, you're not going to come back. And I was sitting there the first opening morning. I had probably, looking back now after I showed, probably had like a 135, 140 come by me. 15 yards away, perfect bow shot. sit there, bro. So I've got a video of that deer. And everybody I showed, why didn't you shoot it? I said, well, I was scared to death because I want to be invited to this back to this man's place, you know. And basically what he told me is, he said, if you have to think about it, he's not big enough. So sorry about the little rabbit hole.
No, I completely agree.
I understand being from South Alabama, man. I mean, I've seen deer up here. It's no comparison. And they do, you know, it's very rare. They kill a big deer down there, but it's nothing like, and it seems like it's got more and more popular, killed in like the 140s, 150s up here in North Alabama. You're seeing it every year. That number is increasing, so something's going on.
There's always a variable with whitetails, you know, like I can throw you all this information and everything, and then someone kill a 200-inch deer in South Alabama the coming year. You know, they will always surprise you with what they're going to do. I mean, we was talking about Central Alabama, like Birmingham. That's Alabama state record. The Alabama state record bow kill was in Birmingham city limits.
Yep.
You know,
I watched the video on that.
Yeah,
pretty amazing.
I mean, whitetails are really make you wonder sometimes. But all that we can rely on now, when it comes to knowledge about them, is what MSU shares with us, or what any of the other universities are sharing with us.
Now, did you know all this information before you started the fix, or would you just started the fix and then kind of learn?
Yes. So I started the fix, and then a lot of this information's not been out but a couple of years.
Yeah.
So like the MSU study, I don't think it was released until like 2 years ago.
So you was actually going out on a whim and just come up with this creation, and then, hey, I am actually doing something right here, and then feeding off of that.
And you can dive in, you know, when we started the fix, the main thing you want to Google is, what minerals do deer need? You know, you can throw a multivitamin at them, but deer, their bodies are only going to take what they need, and then they're just going to pee out the rest.
Right. Kind of like cow. Yeah. I mean, that's cows. You got a guy that come in and buy, you know, some minerals, and he pours out that whole bag of minerals. All of a sudden, his herd comes up there, and they eat it up that first day. Well, then he said, well, something's going on. That they like that stuff. No, that they're actually
deficient.
Deficient, and they're taking what their body needs. And if you keep that out there, you know, they'll slow down, and eventually they'll get what they need, and then as long as it's free range, they come back, and they don't eat it all up at one time.
And comparing like a whitetail to a cow, you know, way bigger animal, you know, but the cows are going to take what they need, like you said, and it's going to taper off. It's like changing a dog from lower protein food to high protein food.
Right.
It might take him a couple of weeks to kind of adjust, but you will find out later on that he's going to start eating less with the higher protein food because he doesn't need as much. But go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, when you were getting the analysis and stuff on this for your tags, you got all that information. Did you learn anything new going through that process?
I guess the percentages and what their actual values to the herd was, like, you know, you look at a lot of bags and you'll read a lot of analysis on other products, and it'll say 20% protein or 25% protein, and then you're like, okay, man, that's got to be great for the deer. But then you start diving into what the deer can actually take, and that's like when the deer goes out and feeds during the day, their limit on protein's like 16 to 18% in a daily usage. So deer on average eats 2 pounds of dry matter a day, so it's like 4 pounds a day of wet food. 15, 16, say he ate on that day, he got lucky and he just ate really high protein plants, you know, and say he took in 30, 40% of protein that day off the entire 4 pounds of food. He's still only going to get 16 to 18%. You know, the rest, like I said earlier, he's just going to.
It's coming out.
You know, he doesn't need it.
So knowing now, you know, it sounds like it's been a learning experience, been a lot of information that you've kind of learned as this journey progresses. Kind of forgot where I was going with that. I don't know. I had to come back to me. But anyway, just keep going on with the fix. Maybe to come back to me.
I think I'll go back to the study. In the first year, antler growth did improve, and the MSU study was talking about. Antler growth did improve, body weight did not. And where I'm going to tie this into is consistency. When I think about the fix, I think about consistency. If you're consistent with your animal, like I said, on the second year, those body weights jumped up and antler growth was even more impressive. If you're consistent with the animal, the first year, you're definitely, if you start using the product, you're definitely going to see more deer. If you've never had a mineral hole in your property, I highly encourage you to put it in like a good traffic area and watch what they do to the ground. Because
I think you just hit the question I had. It come back to me is basically all this learning experience you had. How has that made you a better hunter? And basically, it come to you there.
You know, putting mineral holes on the property, you're going to get a whole lot more traffic. You're going to have a whole lot more deer using the property. That first year, the hole might not be the size of a basketball. And then you think, well, to a lot of people, that's impressive.
Right.
We've got holes. I've got a 3-year-old hole now on a property.
I've seen pictures.
Holy moly, dude. Like it's pretty wild. But some people they're going to see that and they're going to think, well, why aren't the deer doing that at my property? You don't have the deer density that I have. Like we actually have a problem over there.
Right.
Like there's an actual issue with the population over there. So yeah, tying it in, you know, this would be a good way to bring up the winter blend, which it's not here because we do that during the winter time.
Right.
But the winter blend, you'll probably see me post about it. It's in the silver bag. How it's changed as a hunter is just a lot of people feed corn. We mentioned that earlier.
Yes.
If you throw in like one bag of the winter blend it with 50 to 100 pounds of corn, I'm not going to guarantee you that it's going to be more attractive than regular corn, but I'm going to guarantee you it's going to be more attractive than regular corn.
I mean, I've been with Carson and we put some out just in one night, and it's not seem like we've been away 30 minutes to an hour, and all of a sudden they're there, and like, bam, like, holy mess.
And as I go back, like, as on what Dion said about holes, Seth actually got a camera out with us, and he's got a pretty good sized hole coming on.
Yeah.
Consistency is all it revolves around. You know, like I said, that hole that I was mentioning on one of the properties we have, it's big. It's literally about the section of these tables and about 2 foot deep. You know, it's big. But that hole didn't get there from one bag. You know, I didn't put 5 pounds of the fix out, the mineral blend, and then 3 years later, there's just a car hood sized hole in the ground, you know.
Right.
You know, consistency wise, with the mineral every 3 months, there's nothing wrong with that every 3 months. If you want to do it every 5 months, do it every 5. Every half a year, twice a year. Do it twice a year, because one bag a year is better than no bags a year. You know? Right. And not only can you put it in the ground and use it as a mineral during the early season, like if you're in Georgia, you have September, right around second week September, bow season comes in. You can take that stuff and pour it over 50 pounds and put it in a gravity feeder. And I'm talking about, it's just blending it with the corn. Oh man, the smell, and something about the content, like the deer love salt anyways. You know,
yes.
Sodium's a high driving thing for whitetails, and just the salt factor going on that corn, and then the smell, man, I recommend not putting it in a gravity feeder because it'll be gone in about 2 days, if it makes it a day.
Right.
Know? And it can be utilized a lot of different ways, you know.
You touched on maybe, you know, how you this process, where you come now, how much you learn. What are maybe like the biggest hurdle you may have experienced kind of developing the fix? Have you had any?
There wasn't. I mean, to be honest, that anyone that wanted to develop a product, you can get on Google now and learn as much as your brain can hold, as fast as you can click the button and scroll.
Right.
I wouldn't say there was any hurdles with creating it as far as what the deer needed or what they wanted. I would say the thing that this isn't really a hurdle that I will probably ever get over. This is something that some people will run into, and this is with any product. I've used this product on all my properties now, you know, for years. And there's properties where the deer take to it really good, and then there's properties where the deer just don't like it.
I mean, I got a good instance for that. Is I used to plant a lot of chicory on a farm that I used to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I figured out really easy. Chicory don't always work at other places. It's specific to that area, that deer herd. So I can understand that.
I've tried. I mean, at first, the way I was making the mineral, it was really noticeable, especially with mountain deer. I don't know why. There was something about sandrock. Those deer, I don't know if it's the pressure, the lack of density. I don't know if it was just that specific herd that I was trying to feed them to, but it was not overly impressive when you could go to the other side of the county and they would just demolish it.
Right.
And so there, especially since creating it, there's been a couple of things I've changed to it, like ratios, especially what I've added and what I've taken away. And now it's not as big. It's not, I didn't have many people coming to me in the beginning saying, well, this just doesn't work, but there's a whole lot less than there was. But you still have to rule out the thought that, just because, Joe Blow bought a bag and he's supporting and everything, and he went and dumped it in the middle of this pine thicket where the deer are not even, they're nowhere around
Right.
for any reason, And I try to, that's why I mentioned earlier, put that in a high traffic area.
Yes.
Put it somewhere where deer are going to be there, whether it's the wintertime months or the summertime months. Put it somewhere where the deer are going to be. Don't just, and that's with any product.
Right.
If you're throwing corn in your front yard and you just don't have deer in your backyard, they're not going to eat it. And corn is king nearly. So
Right.
yeah, I think hurdle wise, that was a big one, because that was the first, and it might have been 5 people throughout the past couple of years. You're going to have that. But when they tell you and you make the product and they're like, hey man, my deer, they just ain't eating this. You're like, do you want a refund? Like, I don't know.
I mean, you're going to have that anywhere and everywhere you go. I mean,
Well, speaking of crazy people, I heard a quote: if your ideas are big enough, people will think you're crazy. Was there any point that you or someone in your family thought, man, you're crazy for trying to come up with this?
Yeah, not my wife. My wife is supported and she would support me with anything. More or less, it was friends. A couple of friends were like, "Oh man, there's $1 million on the market. It's not gonna do anything." And it did. I stood behind it, and I'd mentioned earlier that this isn't to take my 9 to 5 away.
Right.
I do this on the side. I do it because it helps me give back. And I guess that was the only people I had doubt me was close friends,
Well, and that's my next question. I know Carson's helped you a good bit of stuff, but how's your family helped you kind of make this venture kind of a success?
Word of mouth is good. I love hearing the stories from y'all here at the co-op.
that was going to be my next question. How does it make you feel to hear people's success stories? Because I was, it was last year. I was in a local store and I kind of, listening to people talk, and I actually think it was your grandmother telling this guy about, hey, he needed to try. He's a local guy, and I know both of them, but I overhear them over in the next aisle saying, they're talking about deer hunting, and I'm listening. I'm being nosy. And she actually says, hey, why don't you try the fix? And he did. He took her advice. He come in. I think it was the very next day he killed the biggest buck he's ever killed on his property, and he owes it all to the fix. So.
I think
it was the winter blend as well.
Yeah. See, that's the kind of story that, like, I just want to track them down and be like, I want to see pictures of the deer.
Yeah.
I love the success. But back to the question, I think word of mouth and if you can get the product in their hands, it sells itself after that point.
We like the guy that comes and buys it, and he takes it to Kentucky to to put on his farm somewhere up there. He said it was about 3 weeks before he had any deer show up to even touch it. He said they would just walk around it, but they wouldn't get used to it. And it all took but one. And now they're there.
Yeah. And that was a recent purchase too. That was like a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it?
He's bought since January.
Okay. So and we quit doing the silver bags once deer season got close.
Right.
So if he was placing the mineral, I've been dumping I've started filling mineral holes since January, and like I mentioned to y'all before we sat down, like this past week particularly, like the weather we've gotten and the rains, if you're hanging cameras on mineral holes, they're starting to light up.
Right.
And it's not the product's fault, it's not the deer's fault, it's not anything other than it's just not time. As we get on into April, they start April, June, July, and then you will notice it taper off. In August, generally, it will start to taper off. I mean, those antlers the fawns have done dropped. They dropped, anywhere from June. We've had some fawns drop in May for the early ruts, but then the late ruts, there's lots of fawns that'll drop August, September, October. Those mothers they've met their nutritional peak. They're not feeding a baby anymore inside of them. And the antler growth, once those bucks go hardhorn, they don't have no need. They don't have the need for the dical or the calcium or the phosphorus or anything anymore. They might still be carrying velvet, but
right.
It's hard under there,
Right.
So.
Well, brings me to my next question. Where can our listeners or the ones viewing on YouTube and listening on podcasts, where can they find the fix?
Right now, only at Cherokee Farmers Co-op. The center location.
Hey, we've got the lock now. Now, is there any future in future where you'd like to have it in other stores? I think we've tried. You've tried to have it in another kind of like ag retail store. Is there any plans that you have of maybe kind of doing a website, shipping anything out? Or that type of deal, or do you want to just try to keep it local? What's your plans for that?
I've considered the shipping thing, but then I considered shipping costs.
Right.
And whatever.
And you mentioned cost, and right now I apologize for not saying it, but this bag right here, we sell it for $12.99. I think it's the best money you can buy to kind of go on what you were saying. Is probably the cheapest thing you can buy out there to really give back to your herd and start a herd.
And that was a big thing I wanted to do when I created the winter blend was, as September and October comes in, that becomes less effective. It's nothing. There's nothing you can do. I mean, you can throw any mineral to the deer as the winter comes in. They just don't want it. So I wanted something that you could blend, although you can put that on corn in December and they gonna eat it. It smells so good. But I created the winter blend to replace that during the season months. And when I did the winter blend, I wanted something that I could do same size packaging and I could do at the same price. I didn't want this 6 months of product to cost more than this 6 months of product. If we make them the same and make them even, now, I'll say there was a hurdle there getting what I wanted nutritionally inside of 5 pounds for the winter blend. That one was a little bit of a hurdle. But as far as once we got it there, and I think a big thing that's misunderstood about the winter blend is it's not specifically meant for you to go and dump it one day and to kill a deer. Although you can do it because we've heard the stories. And we've seen the trail camera photos. You can dump it in hours, sometimes 45 minutes they're there. Yeah. But it's not meant to do that. It's meant for if you're dumping straight corn, get a bag of the winter blend and blend it with 50 to 100 pounds of straight corn. And during the winter months when we have those cold fronts, you will see a change in how the deer use your feed site. Like the amount of carbohydrates that are now available, the amount of fats that are now available compared to what it just was traditionally with regular corn, you will see a change. It does make your regular corn pile almost twice as effective.
Right.
And it's not, and there's no big guarantee that I'm going to give you that you're not going to grow a monster buck next year. Now, if you have a giant buck show up on camera the next season, send me some photos. But I promise you, speaking
of sending you photos, can you tell our audience where they can find you? I think you got Facebook.
Yeah.
And send your pictures. If you do come in by the product, please send.
So we've got right now the only way is Facebook. I recently brought in like a little page with a
Right.
QR code inside the store here that you can scan. Now, the new stickers that I'm doing on the backs of the bags, along with the new product analysis, and like your just general feed analysis, it will have a QR code on the back of the bag, and it'll say above that, share your harvest.
So
or share,
somebody don't have the ability to come in the store and scan the QR code. What is the Facebook page? The Fix.
it is the Fix, and it'll look just like the logo on the front of the bag. It, big orange antler and orange words, and you'll know that's it.
Well, there's not another product like that we sell. And like I said, it's been a pleasure working with you. We're coming on over an hour. And by far, this has been our longest podcast so far.
It does
not feel like it.
No.
And I know there's so much more that we can talk about, but we're going to save that for this is not the first and the last, or this is the first, but this is definitely not the last podcast we're going to hold. But we're going to go ahead and try to wrap it up. And I asked there's something new. We've got a few closing questions. It's kind of maybe off the wall a little bit, but I'm gonna let Steven go ahead. He's wrote down a few questions I ask you.
One of the, because I work with Carson, work with Jeremy, I always hear about these family meals and get-togethers. Like, oh, well, so-and-so's going to fix this and that. So I know you turkey hunt. I know you duck hunt, deer hunt. So what is your favorite meal using a game meat that y'all do?
That's a good question, because I got a new one. It used to be like everyone loves like stuffed venison, like backstrap, stuffed backstrap, wrap it in bacon.
Right.
That's awesome. Me and my wife strictly eat venison. We don't eat beef. We eat chicken, and that's it. I mean, we don't buy beef. So venison steaks, deer steaks, hamburgers, that, love it. I killed a turkey on opening day. I'm very fortunate. This is my 5th opening day in a row that I've killed one.
Awesome.
Yeah, not trying to brag, but I killed a turkey on opening day, and I told myself I'd smoked some turkey on my smoker for Thanksgiving and Christmas this year, and it's just the best thing. It's so good. I thought, I wonder what this wild turkey. I just breasted him out. I thought, how will this compare? How will this compare to like store bought? I didn't know what the fat, like if they're just the fat difference, in the two. So I smoked 2 of the breasts, covered them real good in seasoning, and it was the seasoning. It's called Chicka Bam Bam. It's kind of spicy, but it's good. And put it on there, smoked it for like 4 hours at 180, and then wrapped it and finished it. Cooked it in 165, pulled it off, let it rest. I'm telling you right now, that is the best thing I have probably eaten in my
Did he share any with you, Carson?
He did not share it with me. I was never invited.
I'll be honest with you. We had 2 whole breasts sitting in there cut up on the cutting board, and my wife barely got any. That was the best. My in-laws actually come over that night, and my father-in-law was telling me, he was like, this is just insane. Now, I did tell him, I was like, look, all I seen was his head when I shot him. But chew lightly. Because I was like, just chew lightly. He did get shot with a shotgun, so please chew lightly.
What else you got for him, Steven?
I think that was it on the thing.
Carson, you got any questions?
No, going back to the family meals and everything, I would say probably one of the best things I've ever ate that Dion's cooked is sesame rabbit.
Sesame rabbit.
Oh,
Really?
yeah, I didn't think about rabbit. Yeah.
That was probably one of the best things. I was about 12 years old, and he was like, this is really good. And it was really good.
Yeah, it ain't bad. I was going to say, I was like, I've not cooked that lately. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, before I get into my closing questions, I do want to ask, is there a story that you have? I know you've got plenty.
Yeah.
Do you have one that you can share on the podcast?
Yeah, that was my...
Before we close this thing out.
Let's think about it here. I've got 2, but we got to pick between one. You want me to tell the story about you, or do you want me to tell the story about Remington?
We can go, well,
how old were you when that happened?
Shoot.
13?
14. 13.
That makes it funnier. I'll tell it about
Yeah, let's
you.
do it.
So I I've got this duck hunting spot in Hoax Bluff. We call it the Woody Cove Club for some reason. We call it that for years. We've shot a ton of wood ducks down there. This was your first duck hunt. This is Carson's first duck hunt. And I carry him down in there, and it was cold that morning. It was like 20 degrees. And we get down in there, and this spot will have you spoiled. You don't have to wear no waders. You just wear muck boots in there, right? So Carson goes in there. Carson's wearing sweatpants and everything. And like I said, it's spoil you. So we get in there, and we're getting set up. And we got in there an hour before daylight. An hour.
Oh, yeah.
So time's just, trucking on along. We're waiting on shooting light, and Carson's like, "Hey, D, I gotta use the restroom." we're like 2 minutes.
Nature has called.
It has.
We're like 2 minutes from shooting light. Carson, you've had an hour to do what you needed to do. And he's like, "D, man, I gotta go bad." I was just like, "All right, buddy." I was like, just hurry up so you can shoot. So we're sitting there. Carson, breeches down. He's doing his business. Funniest thing, I'm turned the other way. He ain't even 15 yards from me. Ducks are sitting here starting to drop in. I'm shooting. Carson's almost like crying, trying to hurry up. I'm like, man, this is too good. I get my phone out. I'm taking pictures of him. He's sitting there. I've got pictures of him doing this with his pants down. It's stuff like that, You can kill the biggest deer in the world. That story will fade before a story like that fades.
And you get reminded, correct me if I'm wrong, but you get reminded of that story every time he calls you, right?
Oh, yeah, because it's the
profile.
picture of Carson. Oh, man. Carson
It's on his phone.
The picture of Carson bent over with his hand up like this, and it's bright because it was right at shooting light, so the sun's not even up yet.
Man.
So the flash is on, and you could see his mouth open where he's screaming.
It was very cold that morning. I will say it was probably about 19 degrees or a little bit less.
Excuses.
Yeah.
I set that as my picture when he calls me.
I will say this: do not eat a bacon biscuit and drink chocolate milk in the morning.
That chocolate milk goes churning.
Oh, it does.
Oh, good times. Well, I got a couple of questions before we get off here. And Stephen, don't let me forget to.
No.
We got to let people know how they can win that. All right, I win the lottery,
Okay.
and there's no, like I said, money's no option. We can limit as far as you can see. Where are we going hunting? Me and you. You don't have to worry about cost or anything. I'm taking you. Where are we going and what we're going to hunt?
I love whitetails. Whitetails is my passion. That's the drive behind the product. I love them. Love them with all my heart. But I have a dream hunt. I've always had this dream hunt, and I'm sure you will find it just as exhilarating as I would. And it's expensive, so I'm glad we won the lottery. For us to go together, it'd be around $70,000. We're going to the Kodiak Island. We're going to hunt grizzly. Let me re-say that. We're going to hunt brown bear. And
the big Kodiak.
yeah, them are some big.
Oh, are we taking a gun or are we taking a bow?
I want to bow hunt them.
Stick bow?
No, he can carry a stick bow.
Oh.
Yeah, that is my dream hunt, and it. I hope one day I make it into a position in life where I can try to do that. But I could kill the biggest free range whitetail deer in the world, and it will never beat that hunt. I just, could you imagine how big them bears are? I mean, they're 10, 12 foot long. They're massive bears. They're 600 to 800 pounds. They are giant bears. Could you imagine hunting that? Just getting within bow range of that. Say you don't even kill it.
Yeah.
Just say you're
Talking about adrenaline.
Oh man.
Man.
Talking about biscuits and chocolate milk in the morning. Yeah. You won't even need that. That's where we go. We'll be going to Alaska.
My next question, like you said in your introduction, you've always grew up in Cherokee County. Cherokee County, for those who've never been here, real big in agriculture, real big in the cotton. My last question, what does agriculture mean to you?
So, to me, as a hunter, I mean, I can only tie agriculture into what it does for the deer and everything. But to us, I mean, it's our way of life here. What does it mean for us is you get in your vehicle outside this building and drive 2 minutes down that road and you're looking into a cotton field.
Right.
Or you're looking into what's going to be a bean field this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it literally is a way of life here, whether you farm or not. I promise you, one day or multiple days after work, you're going to get behind a tractor on the way home. And you can't get mad because that's where we live. That's what makes this county beautiful. I mean,
well, guys, this has been awesome. And like I said, before we close, Stephen, help me out. How are we going to give this hat in this bag of fix? How are we going to get it away? What do the audience need to do?
You need to comment, like one of these places that we have
this platform, either
yeah.
YouTube, podcast, Apple Podcast. You have to leave a review. You have to comment. Make sure you follow. And, you know, it's a lot easier if you leave a comment. That way we know.
That we know you.
And since this is going to be a giveaway, there's a lot of, you know, fraud going out there. So we had to do a disclaimer. After you leave a comment, how long we want to go for this? You want to go a couple weeks?
Yeah, let's do
a couple of weeks. So that gives us some time for, you know, people to actually get to listen. You know, make sure you like, follow, and share with your buddy. We would gladly appreciate it. And like I said, we're not getting rich from it. This is, as far as I know, advertised free. You know, we're not making anything off of it. What we're trying to do, and the whole story behind this podcast, is to kind of get a perspective of ag retail, what we do on a day-to-day basis, and kind of connect with somebody that's maybe not familiar with a farmer's co-op and all that. So, like I said, like Steven said, make sure you like, share, subscribe. We are definitely, this is no gimmick, we are definitely giving away this hat and this bag of the fix. And guys, like I said, this has been awesome. Like I said, this is the first one, but of very many. There'll be many more to come. Carson, Dacin, I'm glad y'all come today.
Thank you for having
probably
me.
By far, you know, not to knock off any of our first two episodes. This has been probably the best.
Yeah.
So we're getting a little bit better, and like I said, you know,
and also go to our Facebook page.
Yeah, Facebook.
Because we follow the fix on our Facebook page, so we share a lot of his stuff.
I'll put your page in the description where people can kind of click the link and you know, kind of show that, and then if they are able to buy, you know, come in. Since it's only here, I think we talked to Nick. Nick's excited about getting into Piedmont. Jack's going to try to get in Jackson. So we're going to get a little diverse, get it spread out there a little bit so a lot of people can kind of experience this. But if you're in town, please stop by. Come in. We're keeping it all year long. I think that's the plan. Keeping it all year long. So, you know, this has been a blast. Thank you, guys. I think we're a little
long
past closing time, but man, this has been awesome, and I can't thank y'all enough. Thank you. You've been a great person to work with and do business with. You're a great employee.
I do appreciate that.
Maybe we need to work on a little change of clothes or something for the next one or something. You know, my eye didn't twitch anything.
I'll wear some co-op clothes next time.
We're not doing co-op pink shirts.
Yeah, this is cotton.
But all jokes aside, as always, thank you for your business. You know, we're here for y'all. We truly, as you learned from our first two podcasts, you know, we truly care about our customers.
100%.
We don't like anybody treating them bad. You know, we like if something comes in and they're kind of, I don't know, upset about something, you know, we try our best to make sure we take care of them. So, you know, you get in this side of the ag retail, we do care very highly of our customers. Again, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.